So, the film begins, and we see a girl named Layla, who has been kept in isolation. The two people who came to investigate her were also fully covered, as if Layla had some deadly disease that could infect others. However, what they were talking about is not revealed. The scene then cuts, and we are shown Layla's life. Layla is a professor of microbiology, and her husband, Kale, is an army officer. It had been almost a year since Kale had gone missing, and by now, Layla had begun to think that he might be dead since there had been no news about him. During this year, she developed a friendship with one of her colleagues, but soon she realized that this friendship was not right for her, so she decided to end it. However, loneliness started to haunt her. The memories of Kale tormented her a lot. To keep herself distracted, she started renovating her house, and while doing so, one day, Kale suddenly returned. Layla was extremely happy to see him, but there was something strange. Kale was not speaking at all. Worried, Layla made him sit on a chair, gave him water, and asked him where he had been all this time, where he had disappeared to, and what had happened to him. But Kale only replied that he didn't remember anything. After saying this, his health began to deteriorate rapidly. Layla called an ambulance and started giving him first aid while taking him to the hospital. Blood was coming out of Kale's mouth, but before they could reach the hospital and find out what was wrong with him, some vehicles suddenly arrived, surrounding the ambulance. The people inside forcibly took both Kale and Layla away. When Layla regained consciousness, she found herself inside a high-tech facility. As soon as she became conscious, a doctor named Ventress entered her room. Layla was a little scared and asked who she was, but the doctor ignored her question and instead asked Layla, "When Kale came home, did he tell you where he had been and what had happened to him?" Layla looked at the doctor with confusion and replied, "He didn't even speak. He only told me that he didn't remember anything, and after that, he fell sick." Then she asked, "Where is Kale right now?" Upon hearing this, Dr. Ventress took her to Kale. Despite having every possible medical facility in this high-tech facility, Kale's condition was not improving. Layla asked Dr. Ventress what had happened to him. In response, Dr. Ventress took her to her office, where the window revealed a strange and colorful world outside. Seeing this place, Layla was extremely shocked. She asked, "What is this place? And what is this thing?" Dr. Ventress explained, "This is called the shimmer. Where it came from, how it was formed, and what is inside it, no one knows for sure. Everyone has their own theories. But one thing that is certain is that 3 years ago, a meteor crashed into a lighthouse here. After that, this shimmer started to form. However, what lies inside remains a mystery. Many people have gone inside the shimmer to uncover its secrets, but none of them have ever returned, except for one person, and that was Kale. But even after coming out, Kale never revealed what he had seen inside. Dr. Ventress then told Layla that she and 4 other women had decided to go inside the shimmer to investigate and find out what was in there. After hearing this, Layla started to think deeply. She spent several days at the facility and learned from the people there that 2 main theories had emerged about the shimmer. The first theory was that the shimmer was nothing but a reflection of water and sunlight, similar to a rainbow, and that those who went inside had probably taken their own lives willingly. The second theory was that those who entered the shimmer might have lost their way and, in their confusion, ended up killing each other. Whatever the truth was, it could only be discovered by going inside. Layla eventually decided that she would also go inside the shimmer. She went to Dr. Ventress and told her that she wanted to join their mission. However, Dr. Ventress explained that only those who had nothing left to live for were willing to enter the shimmer. Upon hearing this, Layla realized that her husband must have known about her affair, which is why he had chosen to go there. Layla was consumed with guilt over betraying her husband. To cope with her grief, she made up her mind to enter the shimmer as well. Somehow, she managed to convince Dr. Ventress to let her join. A few days later, the group of 5 was shown preparing to enter the shimmer. At this point, the biggest revelation was made. Their team leader, Dr. Ventress herself, was suffering from cancer. Her cancer could take her life at any moment, which is why she had decided to go inside. The scene then cuts, and we see that the group is waking up in their camp. However, none of them remember how they got there. When they step outside, Shepard examines the surroundings and tells the others that they have been there for several days. But they don't remember anything because she believes their minds are already being affected by the alien cells inside the shimmer. Hearing this, the 4 others become even more anxious. They wanted to continue their journey to the lighthouse, where they hoped to uncover the truth about the shimmer's existence. They opened their compasses to determine the direction of the lighthouse, but they realized that no devices were functioning there. Not their watches, not their compasses, and there was no signal for them to call for help. Their only guide was the sun. Using the direction of the sun, they moved forward. As they progressed, things began to appear strange to them. Layla noticed that the plants growing in the area were extremely bizarre. A single stem had flowers of different species growing from it, something that was practically impossible. Ignoring this, they continued ahead. Suddenly, a massive crocodile attacked them. Layla acted quickly and attacked it from a distance. They had guns, and after they killed the crocodile, they approached it and noticed another strange phenomenon. Its teeth were exactly like a shark's. Layla realized that the crocodile's DNA had mutated, which is why its body parts resembled those of a shark. However, how this was possible remained a mystery. Ignoring this as well, they moved further and encountered something even more shocking. They saw a deer whose antlers had transformed into branches covered in flowers. Layla started wondering how it was possible for a plant's DNA to merge with an animal's. Being a microbiologist, it was hard for her to believe in such things, but her team members urged her to keep moving forward. As they continued, they discovered a building. Upon entering, they found a camera, which belonged to the team that had previously gone inside the shimmer for investigation. They turned on the camera, and what they saw was a deeply disturbing and creepy video. They saw that the first person who had come here had something moving inside his stomach. That is, when Lena's husband cut open that man's stomach with a knife, he discovered that the man's intestines had turned into something like a snake and were writhing inside him. Seeing this, everyone got scared and threw the camera away. There was something here that had terrified them. However, upon further investigation, they found nothing in the building. They were relieved and decided to make this building their resting place for the night. At night, when Lena woke up, she saw that the doctor was standing alone outside the building, keeping watch for them. She also went to the doctor, and they started talking about Lena's husband. While they were conversing, Shepard, their third companion, also joined them. They were just talking when suddenly, a massive bear attacked them, killed Shepard. Lena and the doctor wanted to save her, but they knew that if they stayed there, they too would be killed. So, they ran away to save their lives. In the morning, when their remaining two companions learned about what had happened, they immediately decided to leave and return. But Lena and the doctor did not agree. They wanted to complete their mission and reach the lighthouse to find out what was causing all these transformations. They somehow managed to convince their two companions to continue forward, reassuring them that they had come too far to turn back now, and that they couldn't let the sacrifices of those who had come before them go to waste. The two companions understood their point and decided to continue their journey. As they moved forward, they encountered the strangest thing they had seen yet: plants that had human-like shapes. Seeing this, Lena explained that these were not ordinary plants, but actually humans who had come to research the shimmer. Observing all of this, Lena came up with a theory. She explained that the shimmer was working like a prism. Just as light changes form when it passes through a prism, the DNA of anything that came into contact with the shimmer was being refracted and altered. The DNA of different things was mixing and changing, just like how the DNA of these humans had merged with plants. The most alarming thing was that their own DNA was also starting to reflect and change. Anya noticed that even her fingerprints were changing, and she saw that a tattoo that belonged to another team member was appearing on her hand. This meant that their DNA was now merging with each other. Seeing this, Anya became extremely frightened and, in a panic, tied up her companions while they were sleeping. She was convinced that she was going to die. She blamed Lena for convincing her to stay and held a knife to Lena's throat, threatening her to take them back safely. She even accused Lena of being the one who had killed Shepard. Before Lena could say anything, Anya heard Shepard's voice, the same Shepard who had died before their eyes. She rushed downstairs to see what was happening, but there, she found the same bear that had killed Shepard. The bear immediately attacked and killed Anya as well. Lena and the doctor then realized that when the bear had attacked Shepard, their DNAs had merged, which is why the bear was now able to mimic Shepard's voice. While they were trying to process this information, the bear got close to them and was about to attack when their other companion killed it. They had now freed themselves, but so much had happened that they could hardly believe it. The doctor, Ventress, noticed that her own body was also undergoing many changes. Before she could completely mutate, she decided to go alone to the lighthouse to solve the mystery of what was happening there. After she left, Lena and the remaining companions stayed back. They started talking about Lena's husband, who had managed to leave this place alive. While talking, Lena's companion noticed that leaves were growing on her hand. Her DNA had also mutated, and she was only moments away from turning into a plant entirely. Realizing this, she calmly told Lena, "Some people want to understand all of this, Some people want to fight it, but I am among those who want to accept it. Saying this, she stood still and, within moments, transformed into a plant. Now, Lena was left alone. She had no other option, so she decided to go to the lighthouse by herself. When she reached the shore, she saw something astonishing. The plants had transformed into large, beautiful crystals. This was because the DNA of the water and plants had merged. While observing this, she finally entered the lighthouse. There wasn't much that appeared different at first, but she found a camera placed in front of a corpse. Watching the footage from the camera, she realized that the dead body was none other than her husband, Cain. This meant that the person who had returned to her as Cain wasn't actually him. Lena couldn't comprehend what was happening. Nearby, she saw a hole, and she went inside. This was the meteorite, the source of all the strange phenomena occurring here. Inside, she found Dr. Ventress, who was sitting in fear. Ventress explained that the shimmer was like a black hole, and in the coming days, it would consume the entire world. She said she didn't know if anyone would survive. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly transformed into a bright cloud of light, forming a swirling hole in its center. It resembled a black hole, and as Lena stood there injured, a few drops of her blood fell into the light. The moment her blood touched the light, it started forming into a humanoid shape with no face. Seeing this, Lena was terrified and immediately ran out of the meteorite. But she realized that the humanoid figure was following her. Trying to escape, she noticed that it mimicked her every movement. Lena understood that because it was formed from her blood, it was replicating her actions. It had her DNA. Now, Lena devised a plan. She slowly approached her clone and handed it a grenade. As the clone held the grenade, she cautiously stepped backward. The grenade exploded, and as the humanoid figure burned, it lost Lena's form and reverted to its original state. As it burned, everything around them started returning to normal. The shimmer, which had been expanding and threatening to engulf the world, began to shrink and eventually disappeared. In the final scene, we see Lena returning from her mission. This was the same scene from the beginning of the movie, where she was being interviewed. She told everyone that the shimmer was an alien energy, and as soon as it was destroyed, everything returned to normal. After this, she went to meet her husband, Cain, who had miraculously recovered the moment the shimmer was destroyed. However, the biggest question remained. Since Lena had seen Cain's corpse inside the shimmer, was this really the real Cain, or was it his clone? Lena asked him directly, "Are you the real Cain?" And with this unanswered question, the movie came to an end.